Hey everyone, it's Jonathan, and today I'm bringing you another compilation episode, this time 3 episodes from my podcast, The Disney Movie Marathon, where I'm very slowly making my way through the Disney canon. I recorded this episode in 2022 with my friends Rachel Wagner and Eli Sanza. We are all big Disney fans, so I thought it'd be fun to talk about Cinderella, but not just the original 1950 film, but also the 2015 remake and the 2 direct-to-video sequels. In years past, I was making it a practice to do episodes on as much of a franchise as I could whenever I'd hit a big one like this on my way through the Disney canon. And while I do intend to mostly continue that idea, I no longer do things the way I did for this one, recording all 3 episodes in one shot with the same people. There will probably be a couple more episodes like that coming later as I re-release some of my other best of episodes, but these days my focus is on the official canon, and I'll come back to the sequels, spin-offs, and remakes as I have time. I may still retool some of those into compilation episodes for this show, depending on how long they are, but we'll see what happens as we come to each thing. For now, let's talk to Rachel and Eli about Walt Disney's original Cinderella as well as its live-action remake, plus its direct-to-video sequels, Cinderella 2, Dreams Come True, and Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time, which I will say up front has no right being as good as it is. Like, the bar is very low with the direct-to-video sequels, especially following Cinderella 2, Dreams Come True, but whoever came up with the idea for Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time was like, I know this is a corporately mandated sequel, but we're going to do everything in our power to make sure this one doesn't suck. Anyway, we'll save that for last. For now, let's talk about the original and the best, Walt Disney's 1950 animated masterpiece, Cinderella. So I guess to start with, we could talk about, do you remember the first time that you saw this movie?
I mean, it was probably when I was a toddler. So I don't remember the first time I've seen Cinderella my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of the same for me because I had a lot of Disney movies on VHS growing up as a kid, and Cinderella was one of the ones we owned, and we watched that one a lot. We watched all of them a lot, but Cinderella was one of them. And it was one of the earliest ones we got. It was like Bambi was the first movie I owned. Like they got me like that when I was a baby. That was my Christmas present, was Bambi on VHS. So that was like the first movie I ever watched. And I think Cinderella was like the second video we ever got after that. So it was, I don't remember the first time I ever watched it, but I know just like Rachel, I know I was like probably a toddler.
Yeah, I don't really remember the first time I watched it either. I was older for sure because I don't remember watching it as a young kid. I have a feeling we borrowed it from the library because that's how we watched pretty much everything when we were kids. We didn't own very many VHS tapes, and I know we didn't own this one, and my cousins didn't own this one, so I'm pretty sure we just borrowed it from the library. So I don't think this is one that we watched a lot, but I remember watching it a few times as a kid and always liking it. But I don't think I had seen it since I was a kid until now. So it was semi-fresh when I watched it for the podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty interesting. I love Cinderella. When I first started my YouTube channel, one of the first things I did was I did a whole series on different versions of Cinderella. I did Slipper and the Rose, and of course the Disney Cinderella. This was leading up to the new live action, but the glass slipper with Leslie Caron. I've reviewed on my channel a Cinderella story. A lot of different versions of Cinderella. I just love the story. So Ever After.
Yeah, there are so many. Ever After, I think that's probably my quintessential Cinderella, because I'm sure I watched Ever After a lot more than I watched the Disney one. Because I don't think we personally owned it, but I think we had a friend that owned it, and she lived next door for several years, and we watched it a bunch with her. And then I watched that one later on in life too.
It's like the thinking man's Cinderella. It's, there's all this talk about philosophy, and the big date is at a library. That's this gorgeous outdoor library. Like, Well, not outdoor, but it's like in nature.
I never saw that movie. Is that like a fairy tale, or is it like take place in modern times?
No, it's in the past, but
Okay.
It's not magical. It's inventions.
yeah, they have the Da Vinci being her fairy godmother, and it is pretty good. It's got Drew Barrymore and Angelica Houston is the evil stepmother. She's really good in it. It's a fun one.
Okay, sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you'd like it. Yeah. And The Slipper and the Rose is really fun too. That has a whole bunch of Sherman Brothers songs, which are charming, of course. Mm-hmm. And that's an underrated one.
Yeah, if it's got Sherman Brothers, you sold me already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'd like it. It's funny, and they have. I would say it's a pretty empowered Cinderella in it.
Oh, okay.
I guess that is a topic that we could talk about, the empowered Cinderella. That's one of the criticisms that always gets leveled against this movie, is how she's just too passive. But I don't think that's entirely true, especially watching it now. To me, it's like, what else could she do? Like, the position that she's in, that she's found herself in, especially at the time that she lived, how else could she have been more empowered? Everybody wants her to be more empowered, but how, without completely going outside of the point in history in which she has found herself? Yeah.
Well, and I definitely push back on people who say, "Oh, she just needed to be rescued by a man," and I don't think that's true. I mean, she gets her dress made. And she's not looking for this to be a rescue. She's just trying to have a fun night away from her troubles.
Yeah, I think people assume that she's like Snow White, thinking someday my prince will come, right. And that's not her at all. She's not even thinking about a prince. She's not thinking about finding someone to help her escape. She's living her best life as she can in the conditions that she has found herself in, dreaming of something better coming someday, but not waiting for somebody to rescue her. She just has faith that life will get better.
Yeah, and when she sings "Dream is a Wish," she never talks about the castle or anything like that in that song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That song is basically just her dreaming of a better life and believing that someday a better life will come. But in the meantime, she's working with what she's got.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I argue about this on Twitter all the time because I see people criticize the princesses, and I always think about the story of Cinderella is one that seems like people aren't paying attention to whenever they criticize it, because if you actually pay attention to the story, like, okay, so it's what it's basically about is a girl who has a terrible life, and then she escapes that life, and basically at the end of the story, she has a good life now. She's married to a prince, and she lives in a castle, and she escaped her terrible family. So it's basically just a story about, this is something Roald Dahl does a lot in his book. It's just a story about someone who has a terrible life who ends up having a happy life. And that's a simple story. It's something that appeals to a lot of people. That's one of the reasons why it's so popular. It's like a lot of people wish they could escape their terrible life and find a happy life. So it's a totally relatable.
Yeah, I think that's why the story has remained popular for generations. It's a story about hope, that if your life is horrible, then maybe you will have a Cinderella moment where you get relief, you get help. And we even talk about it in sports, the Cinderella story of, the unlikely team that makes it through.
Right, exactly. It's so universal.
I think another thing too is, I don't want to say it's like, this is absolutely the moral, but like, Cinderella is a very kind person. And even though it's not like explicitly said, it's almost like the moral of the story is be kind and your life will get better. I think they do that more, that's more plain in the remake, but you can still see it in this one too, even though they don't explicitly say that.
Yeah, it's true. They do say it in the remake of Kindness and Courage.
Mm-hmm.
Which I actually liked that, but it was, some people I know said it was heavy-handed, but I liked it.
Well, I don't think there's enough movies about kind people these days, so maybe that's why people see that and think, oh, it's heavy-handed.
Yeah. Well, when we get to the live action remake in this discussion, I'm gonna defend it because I agree with Rachel.
Yeah.
Like, it's a good movie, so like, get ready.
It's definitely one of the best that they did with the remakes, for sure.
Yeah.
And another thing that people always level against this is criticism, I guess, is that she can't do anything for herself and she has to wait for a man to rescue her. And if you watch the movie, it's not a man that rescues her. It's the fairy godmother. The fairy godmother is behind this whole thing. Like, none of this would have happened without her.
Yeah. He's just kind of a side bonus. That's how I see it, at least.
Kinda, yeah.
I feel like the prince wasn't like as focused, and it wasn't as focused in the plot as some people think he was, because he was an important part of the plot. I agree with that, but it seems like the main point was just, I just kept focusing on, okay, the Cinderella, like, I wish she could escape this terrible life she had, and like, because I feel sorry for her and I have empathy for her, and if what she wants just happens to be this prince, then that's what she can pursue. But mostly the point was just, whatever makes her happy, I hope she pursues it. And that was the main thing. I just wanted her to have a better life. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that was the main point of the story.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. I know it's technically a romance, but to me, the most important and best part about it is her escaping her awful family.
Yeah. I mean, it's just barely a romance. It's about her, her escaping this horrible situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially the animated Disney movie from 1950. That one was barely a romance. Like, the romance in that one was very shallow and very aside from the point. It was pushed to the side to focus more on the slapstick comedy of the mice and the cats, really.
Yeah.
I noticed that. It was like the mice are taking up a huge chunk of screen time here.
Some people criticize that movie because of how much it focuses on the Tom and Jerry antics going on, but I like that stuff because I'm a fan of Tom and Jerry and I like comedies, so I didn't mind that they focused on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the scene with Lucifer and Gus and Jocks, maybe it is a little bit probably too long, but I still enjoy it overall. And I think the loyalty that the mice have to Cinderella is very sweet. I love the whole thing with them making her dress. And then when it's such a lovely gesture. And then when it gets destroyed, it's such a devastating moment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think the mice too, they're entertaining as well. Yeah. They never feel like they're overstaying their welcome.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I totally agree with that. And the other thing is that, like, it would be one thing if it felt like the story was put to a complete halt because they were focusing on the mice and the cats. Because if that was happening, then I would think it was bad writing. But they didn't really do that because a lot of the stuff that the mice and the cats did was important to the plot. Like Rachel said, like the fact that they made the dress for her, and especially at the end when they stole the key and tried to free Cinderella from the attic, they were important parts of the story.
Yeah, their scenes definitely had a point, even though they may have been a little long for some people. They did have a point.
Yeah, and one more thing I'll say about that though is that, like, a lot of times in a lot of Disney movies, that's something that happens frequently, actually. Sometimes there are moments in animated Disney movies, especially the ones during Walt Disney's era, that didn't really have anything to do with the plot. Like you remember that scene in Bambi when Bambi and Thumper were skating on the ice? That was sort of like, that wasn't really an important part of the plot, but it was still something that Walt Disney likes to do because he likes to just focus on just character moments and getting audiences to love the characters, and rather than focus on moving the plot forward, because he didn't think that was important. He thought that's just, and that was sort of like what was happening with the mice too. He just wanted you to get to know them. Like when the mice were trying to eat outside, and like the cat was like followed the mice and when they were trying to escape into the mouse hole, like that wasn't really important to the plot, but it was just like a good character moment. It was good to like get to know them, and that was something that Walt did a lot, I noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also interesting when you're talking about this film, just to think about what it meant to the studio as kind of, it was literally a Cinderella moment for the studio itself.
Yeah.
That they needed a hit really bad.
That is so true.
Yeah, that's kind of true. I never even thought about that.
Because the war films.
Yeah, if you follow the history of the Disney studio through the 1940s, the 40s was a really turbulent and heartbreaking time for Walt because of the strike and because of the war cutting off the profits from his movies like Pinocchio and Fantasia and Bambi. And so they couldn't afford to like make high budget films anymore. Which is why they made package features like Fun and Fancy Free and Melody Time and stuff like that. And Cinderella was the first movie they made that was a return to form after Bambi came out in 1942 and Cinderella came out in 1950. That was the first one that was actually a full non-packaged story. And it had to be a success. Otherwise, the studio might have gone under because they were losing so much money in the 40s. So when Cinderella was a success, it literally saved the studio.
Yeah, it's very similar to Little Mermaid in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. It was similar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now that I'm thinking about it, kind of like, not to the same degree probably, but Tangled and then Frozen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's almost like if Disney needs to save their studio, do a princess movie.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's what's so ironic, because for years, Disney thought that because of the failure of Sleeping Beauty, they thought that girls' movies didn't sell. This was an idea for years. And yet it's so ironic because time and time again, when the studio needed saving, what saved them was a movie for girls.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting.
So true. Yeah, when Sleeping Beauty failed at the box office in 1959, after that was the longest period the studio ever went without having a princess movie. And the first time, and like you just said, the first time they got one after that was Little Mermaid, like 30 years later, and it was a hit. And just like Jonathan said, Tangled sort of revitalized the studio too after the 2000s because there weren't a lot of princess movies there either. And also Pixar was outshining them at the box office, but Tangled turned it around for them. So basically, princesses have been saving the studio for decades.
Yeah, well, and with Tangled, Princess and the Frog had been a big disappointment the year before, and so then they really needed kind of to bounce back from that.
It's a good thing they had Tangled on standby. Otherwise, they probably would have used Princess and the Frog the way they used Sleeping Beauty to say, oh, we can't do princess movies. They won't sell.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's talk about the cast, because there are a few names here that I think are big names for Disney, but most of the people in this movie, I have no idea who they are. Like, you have Eileen Woods as Cinderella, and I mean, I've known her name because she's Cinderella for years, but I just clicked on her IMDb page. She hardly did anything. Like, Cinderella is the main thing that she did. So I'm kind of surprised that she has 5 actress credits on IMDb, and one of them is a sing-along songs video from 95. So really, she only has 4.
Wow.
But I love her vocal performance in this movie, especially singing that beautiful timbre to her voice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she has an amazing voice. I'm so surprised she didn't do anything else, or hardly anything else.
Yeah, I mean, at that time, it's not like there were tons of other studios making animated films. I mean, there were a few, but if she was mainly looking for voice work, I don't know. It's not like is today where there's 50 animated films coming out every year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also I'm pretty sure Walt found a lot of his voice actors for his animated movies through radio, and so I think that's probably where he discovered Eileen Woods.
Oh, you might be right.
That might be why she doesn't have a lot of acting credits, because she might have been primarily a singer or something like that, but I'm not sure.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, because IMDb doesn't have a page specifically for radio credits.
Yeah.
Although now that I'm looking through the page more closely, there's a thing that says other works, and she had a show called the Eileen Woods Show in 1944, so I bet that's how she was found.
Yeah, she had her own show before Cinderella came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love her singing. I love A Dream is a Wish, but then I also love Sing Sweet Nightingale. I think that whole sequence is very underappreciated. I like the fact that it doesn't really go anywhere. It's not needed. And because I think sometimes we forget in today's animated films that everything is so plot heavy that we don't just have a moment to just with the character and just experience a breathe with the character. And that's what I appreciate so much. I love the animation of the bubbles, and I just love that sequence.
I completely agree with you about modern animated movies being too plot heavy, and about the Sing Sweet Nightingale sequence, which is really well done.
Yeah, that's something that anime tends to do better than Western animation. Is I feel like they have more moments where you just sort of get to do something kooky or fun or relax and breathe with the characters.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember having a thought of that recently about movies not having scenes that were there just as a nice moment. And I don't remember what movie I was watching, but I bet it was something anime, because they do have a lot of scenes like that, and you don't get very many scenes like that these days.
No, that's some of my favorite things about anime, and it's also some of my favorite things about Disney's old movies, because like I just said, Bambi was basically complete.
Yeah.
Basically plotless if you look at Bambi. That's the example I always go to about why modern animated movies are worse now. I always look at Bambi because like there's nothing going on in Bambi. It's just like a completely following the life of a deer growing up through the seasons. It's like no studio would green light that today.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, apparently Disney is working on a remake, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, we'll see. That'll be interesting.
And it's really fun with the Sing Sweet Nightingale sequence because we've just heard the stepsisters singing it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I love the sound effect when the one clonks the other over the head with the flute.
There was a really good sound effect from this movie.
Yeah, when Cinderella's like, should they have any more music lessons?
You can hear the air quotes around that.
I know, that was really well done.
Another big name from this movie is Eleanor Audley as Lady Tremaine, the stepmother. And, of course, her main thing that we know her from is Cinderella, but also Sleeping Beauty. She has a much bigger IMDb page than Eileen Woods did.
Yeah, she's great. I mean, it's so chilling. And then I also love Verna Felton in this. She's great as the fairy godmother.
Yes, I love her.
Verna Felton has range. She can do it all. She did villains, and she did a comforting grandmother character in the fairy godmother, and she could do the Queen of Hearts. Like, that is range. Yeah.
She could be the Aunt Sarah in Lady and the Tramp. She's the worst in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the haughty elephant matriarch in Dumbo.
Mm-hmm. She's the meanest one in Dumbo. She's so mean.
Yeah, I love her voice. She's just the cutest little grandmother. But then, like you said, she can turn it around and be awful too.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me that the songs turned out as well as they did in this, because they have so many cooks in the kitchen for this. They have 3 different people involved in the songs. And then they have 2 other people that did the score. So it's a lot.
Yeah, you're right. You would think that because there's so many people working on the soundtrack that it might suffer or something like that, but this is some of the best songs Disney ever made. Yeah. The soundtrack of this movie is really great.
It's so good. I love songs. Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, great.
Yeah, and the people who wrote the songs in this movie have like experience. They had hit songs before. They were Tin Pan Alley musicians, and so they knew what they were doing, and I think Walt Disney knew that.
Yeah.
With the music, the one thing that I had forgotten about the song at the beginning, the Cinderella song. I think that's one that's not really remembered as much as like A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes or Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, because I'd completely forgotten about it. I never hear people cover that one, because I think most of the reason I remember some of the other ones is because for a while I was like obsessed with Disney covers. Like I would get anything that Disney put out, like the Disney Mania albums, or there's like classical Disney or jazz Disney. I would get all those. I loved all those different cover albums. And so I'm very familiar with anything that was on those. That one was never covered. So it kind of, I mean, that's not the reason that it's not remembered.
I mean, it's kind of just a filler song. I mean, it's just like your introduction. I think it would be kind of weird to see it like separated out from the movie as its own song. But I guess maybe they could have Beauty and the Beasted it, but
that is true. But then you get stuff like today with Don't Talk About Bruno from Encanto, which is like extremely plot heavy. It's like, how did that song become such a breakout hit?
I would put actually Bruno. I would actually compare that more with Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, because both are plot. A lot happens in both of those songs, and they're both more like poppy, more, they're not like the ballads. Yeah,
I suppose that's true.
Or like I would also compare it to a song like Friend Like Me. You ain't never had a friend. But yeah, I mean, I am still proud of myself, because when we were leaving the theater, you can ask Stanford and Jen, my friends, we're leaving the theater. We just seen Encanto, and I said, that Bruno song is the best song in the movie. That is going to be a hit. Yeah. And they were like, you're crazy. What's wrong with you? And it's like, yes.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Your instincts are so on the money.
I'm like, Disney, listen to me.
Yeah.
Because that song is it's an earworm. It is so catchy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the best possible way.
You were so correct. It's like extremely popular.
Yeah, I know. It never felt so into things.
Yeah. I didn't see that coming either.
If anything, I would have guessed that Surface Pressure would have been the most popular song.
That's the second best song.
That one was my favorite when I first saw it.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. But yeah, I mean, I love the details about Cinderella, like the fact that I love the whole thing with Lady Tremaine and her eyes, the green eyes.
I noticed her eyes. It was like so everybody else has like kind of normal cartoon eyes, but hers are like bright lime green.
Yeah, it's so effective. Yeah. It's chilling. And I love the fact they named the cat Lucifer. That's hilarious.
Yeah. That was my introduction to the name Lucifer, was the cat from Cinderella. I didn't even know it had anything to do with the devil until years later.
One of the first articles I did for Rotoscopers was on it. I first did a history of Disney owls, and then I did a history of Disney cats. Lucifer was on there.
I didn't realize until I looked up the IMDb page, June Foray did Lucifer's voice.
Oh, love her.
Yes. I'm
Legend.
glad you pointed that out, because, yes, Rocky from Rocky and Bullwinkle, like...
Granny from Looney Tunes.
I love
Witch
Granny
Hazel.
From Looney Tunes. Yes, he is amazing. And, like, I don't know how many people know that that's the same person who did the cat from Cinderella, but it's totally her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I will say with Lucifer, I liked, even though it kind of turned around at the end, I liked how Cinderella, she wasn't like an apologist for him, but like you could tell that she didn't hate Lucifer, and she was trying to get Lucifer to be nice, and she was trying to get people to be nice to Lucifer.
Yeah.
So then at the end, when she finally kind of snapped, it was, I don't want to say like satisfying, but like she finally had enough of his garbage.
I mean, it's a cat named Lucifer. Like, it's hard to feel sorry for the cat.
I loved how very cat-like he was. Like, you could tell that the people who animated him really studied cats, or at least maybe they probably had cats of their own. Because
Yeah.
I noticed so many little things that he did that was just so very actual cat-like.
Yeah. Yeah, I do want to praise Ward Kimball specifically because he's the guy who supervised the animation of the cats and the mice, and he's like Walt Disney's funniest animator, and he did a lot of good visual humor with those characters.
Yeah.
I also love the design of Anastasia and Drizella, especially with their big bustles.
Oh yeah.
Really
They did a good job on the ugly stepsisters, I have to say.
I did think, though, that when they were kids, they were kind of cute in the very first scene when they first move in.
I think they're hilarious. They're great. Deliciously evil.
Yeah. They were good characters.
And the beautiful Mary Blair art design is just so great. I love all this whole era with her and her style.
Yeah. It's all over the movie from the 1950s Mary Blair style, and she was excellent.
Yeah. One of my favorites. This is I had it at number 3, I think, in my most recent ranking, 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I don't have a definitive ranking yet. I'm kind of making one as I go through my rewatch now. But this one is definitely up here for me. It is one of the best ones.
The only thing that I don't love in this movie is I get a little tired of the king and his
I was just gonna say
ranting. I could use a little less of that.
The king had more lines than the prince. He had a bigger part than the prince.
Yeah.
It goes on a little too long.
I loved the scene when the king was trying to kill the Grand Duke. That cracks me up every time. I don't know what you're talking about because I love them.
The king has a temper on him. Like he flies into a murderous rage, literally.
And his face just turns bright red.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. They're a little bit of the same problem with the mice and the cats. It's a slapstick comedy, and they they focus on it a little too much. But they did the same thing a little bit with Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan. You know, when Captain Hook is the crocodile. Remember, there was a lot of slapstick comedy in that too. They tend to focus on that a lot. And the reason why they do that, I think, is because they just think audiences are bored by like the romantic elements and stuff, so they think that they'll be more entertained by comedy. And I think and I don't know if that's fair or not, because like I don't know if people, maybe it would still be a perfectly fine movie without that, but they were popular movies, so maybe there was something to that.
I have a feeling that that's probably true for some audiences, and I don't necessarily hate it. I do think it could have been toned down a little bit. It does seem kind of weird that the king is so murderous. Because you don't get that. I can't think of any other Cinderella versions where the king is trying to actively murder his help.
Trying to kill some guy. It was like a whole scene dedicated to him trying to kill somebody. But it was dark, but it was funny.
Well, and it's weird that this era of Disney movies, they loved having scenes where characters get drunk. Like almost every Disney movie has a scene where characters get inebriated. And I mean, and if you think about Sleeping Beauty,
was he drunk in that scene?
What's that?
Was he drunk in that scene? I don't remember.
And they in the Sleeping Beauty with the whole Scumps scene, it's very similar to this.
Yeah. They weren't drunk in Cinderella, I don't think, but in Sleeping Beauty there was. Yeah, you're right, Rachel. There was a scene in Sleeping Beauty where they got drunk, and it was like they focused on that a lot, and it was a little like similar to the scene with the King and the Grand Duke.
The King is kind of the same character.
Yeah, kind of is. It's also sort of short-tempered, and like style is very similar.
was the king in Sleeping Beauty also that obsessed with having grandchildren? Because that's like his entire reason for everything that he does. He wants grandkids now.
Yeah.
I do kind of like that gag of like the paintings get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
So there's like this massive taking up the whole wall. And he just wants to have his grandkids, evidently. But I don't know if I would trust this crazy man with my children.
No, yeah.
That's true. Don't let Grandpa babysit without someone babysitting Grandpa.
I also like his bed is like the largest bed. It wasn't really goes way high.
It's such a big bed. My God.
I don't know why he just doesn't get married again. Why is
I don't know. He's like he doesn't want to go through all the work. He wants to. That's why he has kids. Probably like you get me grandkids. You're like you do all the work now.
That's probably true. Yes.
Yeah.
I do think that part goes on a little long, but other than that, I mean, when they're trying on the glass slipper and then the slipper breaks, and the whole scene where they're trying to get the key up to her, and she's trying to talk to Bruno. Another Bruno.
The suspense. That was a suspenseful scene.
Maybe I need to do an article, History of Disney Brunos.
Yeah. And you got the missing brother. Is there any others?
Well, there's Luca, Bruno.
Luca.
Don't talk about Bruno.
Silent Seal Bruno. Yeah.
Anyway, but that scene is really great and very well animated, very tense. Are they going to be able to get the key up? And you see them just, and then when Lucifer comes, and you're like, no.
They were so close, and then Lucifer stopped them. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
And so Bruno was the hero of the movie.
Yes, he was.
Absolutely.
Get Bruno! Somebody get Bruno!
Yes.
Yeah.
And they did a nice job setting that up, because in the beginning of the movie, he was talking about how like dogs should get along with cats, and he was like criticizing Bruno for trying to and then they did a complete 180, and he was like, "Oh, I know what to do. I'm gonna call the dog."
Yeah, and in the remake, some people are like, "Why isn't she doing more to get out like she does in the animated film?" But the thing about it is that she doesn't know in the remake that the prince is there. She has no idea. So
you're right.
She's trying to stay positive and sing a song to help her feel, better and be positive. But she has no idea that the Duke is there.
And also, what are you going to do when you're trapped in your room? Like, how much power do you have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, especially in this one, because she's literally in a tower. Like, there's no escaping.
Yeah.
I don't think she's got enough sheets that she can tie together to get down to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But at least when she finds out that she knows that the prince is there, that's when she relies on the loyalty of her friends to help her find the key.
Yeah.
But in the remake, she has no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot less mice and cat antics in the live action remake, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I like that they did their own thing and didn't force in the music, didn't force in the
yes.
They made it their own.
The live action Cinderella didn't have any music, actually. Yeah, that I thought, which was sort of surprising, because I would think, you would think the Disney executives would think, you have to have music. The music is everything. But they did, Kenneth Branagh was given a lot of creative license to do his own thing, and made a non-music Cinderella, which I thought was great because it was just something different.
I agree. I certainly liked it much better than this recent one with Camille.
Yeah.
That one was so weird, because Idina Menzel is the evil stepmother, but she's not evil at all. She's mean at times, but when she finds out that Cinderella is having this relationship where she's like, well, you better go right to it. You can save the family. You can help it. I'm like, what? She's not supposed to say that.
I didn't see that movie, but I heard people criticizing it for some of the things you just said. The stepmother isn't evil enough, and
no,
that was one of
she makes valid points.
It sounds weird.
I haven't seen this either yet. I just heard that it was horrible, so I was putting it off until I get to it for every version ever. And I wasn't even planning on doing it for this first round of Cinderella stories. I just heard it was terrible.
Yeah. So. But yeah, I mean, this version of Cinderella, it does everything you want a version of Cinderella to do. It has a really lovely lead character. It's got great songs, great fairy godmother. It gets to emotional spots when that dress is torn apart, I think. And she, runs out and she says, that's it. That's the end for her and the fairy godmother. Mm-hmm. He says that if you've lost hope completely, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, we haven't really talked enough about the evil things that the stepmother and stepsisters have done. The stepmother, I love the way they introduce her, because she's basically going into this dark, huge room, and the lighting in that scene is so good. The way that the lighting is falling across her face, and even especially when she does
some of the green eyes too.
Yes, when she does evil things later, and the lighting will narrow around her eyes. The way they use light in regards to the stepmother was so good.
That was one of the best introductions of a villain ever, and they did a good job maintaining the threat level of that character throughout the entire movie, based largely on her introduction, because you could tell the movie was all fun and games up until this point. Then but this character is serious. She is a force to be reckoned with, and she is genuinely terrifying, and that's a great villain.
Yeah, and she's terrifying in a way that she doesn't even need Maleficent level magic to do. She just
controlling
personality.
Controlling one person is all that she needs to be evil. And when Cinderella, when she gets upset after the dress, she says, "Oh no, it isn't true. It's just no use at all. I can't believe, not anymore. There's nothing left to believe in, nothing." Mm-hmm. And that's just such a devastating moment, because she's been such a positive character. And I think that's a great message that you can take away from Cinderella, is to, when we face hard times, not that we need to be gloss over or not take things seriously, but there is value, I think, in being positive, and that can get us a long way in life. And then fairy godmother says, "Nothing, my dear. Oh, now you don't really mean that." But I do. And then she says, "Nonsense, child. If you'd lost all your faith, I couldn't be here, and here I am."
Yes. The fairy godmother is a nice metaphor for staying positive.
Yeah. And it just, I feel like it has all of the things that you want from a Cinderella movie. The transformation of all of the objects, to create her, the carriage, the pumpkin to the carriage is so good. I love the transformation of her dress. That's very iconic and beautiful. Yeah. I'm not sure why in the princess lineup they make it blue, because it's not blue. Yeah.
It's silver.
It's silver. So I don't know why they do that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about that, but I did notice. Yeah, it's always blue in all the merchandise, but it's not blue in the movie. I never really thought of that. It's silver. Yeah, you're right. It's maybe they just like blue better. I guess apparently.
Well, it's funny too, because they use the pink dress for Aurora, because they say that's blue is Cinderella's color, but it's not even her color in the movie. So.
Pink would be more Cinderella's color anyways, because if you go by her first dress, the one that was her mother's, that was pink.
Yeah. Well, and then in Little Mermaid, they invent a dress for Ariel. She has that green dress in the Disney Princess. That's not in the movie at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't it white at the end?
Is white. She has her wedding dress at the end.
Yeah.
And then she has a pink dress that she wears before for the dinner. when she's there out with when they go to dinner. But she never wears a green dress in all of Little Mermaid.
Something
right
tells me that the people behind the princess lineup aren't too concerned about continuity.
They're fast and loose with these dresses.
It's like, I don't know. There's some, that there's some kind of strategy behind like how they color princesses. Whether there's any legitimacy to it, I don't know. But like, they're thinking about it. It's like, okay, like, we can't have Aurora be blue because Cinderella's blue, but Cinderella wasn't blue in the movie, but we're making her blue now because I don't know, maybe they think blue is more popular than silver or something. I don't know. There's some reasoning behind all of it that's complex, I guess.
People were surprised when they made
green.
People were surprised when they made, not that Elsa is in the princess lineup, but people were surprised when they made her blue because that's Cinderella's color. But things are just
I guess there's only so many colors, and
exactly,
once you
there
get
are
so
only
many
so many
princesses,
colors.
you got to start reusing.
You can't just run out of colors. You have to recycle some.
Unless you start mixing them, like they could give a princess like a plaid dress, and another one could have a polka dot dress.
Yeah, I mean, I guess technically Jasmine is also blue, but it's not a dress, so maybe that's why.
Yeah,
See,
anyway,
the logic of that is so flawed. Whatever.
but yeah, there's no blue dress in Cinderella. That's always kind of funny to me, but I love the silver one. It's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it's animated, the transformation of the dress, I love that.
Yeah, all the transformation animation is really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Walt Disney told his animators that he wanted them to wow him when they made the dress transformation. So they were like trying to impress him, and when they animated that, and they succeeded.
Yeah.
One thing that I was going to talk about, going back to the stepmother and the way she controls Cinderella, she doesn't only control Cinderella. She knows her daughters enough that she can control them without them even knowing it. Because if you watch the scene where they tear her dress apart, they do it because of the stepmother. The stepmother notices her beads. She knows that they're Drizella's, and she looks at them and compliments the beads and says, "Don't you think so, Drizella?" And that sparks Drizella's freak out.
My necklace.
Yes.
Yes.
So the stepmother she knows how to control people in general.
That's one of the reasons why I think she's such a great character. They do a good job. They do the same thing a little bit with Scar in The Lion King. They did a good job making her seem manipulative and like in a realistic way. And those are usually the most like threatening villains. And like I like Scar too, and I like her for the same reason, because it's like this isn't just a character with magic power, like you said, like Maleficent. This is someone who's like using psychologically like evil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one other thing that I wanted to talk about was like at the very end when Cinderella's coming down the stairs and the evil stepmother thinks that she has won because she's shattered the shoe. There's no shoe for her to try on. The look on her face when Cinderella pulls out the other shoe, it was priceless. I loved that scene.
Satisfying. It was satisfying. It was like they defeated her.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to the remake.
So, did you guys see this in theaters when it first came out?
I did, yeah. Yeah, definitely. It was one of my favorites of the year, actually.
I watched it on DVD like later. I didn't check it out in theaters, but like after it came out in theaters, I did notice it was getting like better reviews than I was expecting. So I definitely wanted to see it, but I rented it later, and I ended up liking it a lot more than I was expecting, because like live action remakes are kind of hit or miss, but this one they did a good job with it.
Yeah, I saw this one in the theater. My cousins and I went to see it, and I remember liking it, but I don't remember it making too much of an impression on me, because I I didn't see it again until I watched it for this podcast. And I have to say, having watched all these other remakes in between that one and today, this is one of the best ones. And I'm surprised it didn't stick with me more than it did.
I feel like it's almost undeniable. This is one of the best ones.
Yeah, definitely. Like it was almost shocking to me how much it stood above the other remakes. Even though, like I've said many times, I don't hate the remakes. I think a lot of them leave something to be desired, but I don't like actively despise them. But it still was surprising to me how much higher quality this one was than the others have been.
Yeah. I don't care for the trend as a whole. I think is just not my favorite, even if there's a few that I've enjoyed.
Oh, yeah.
I wish they would stop.
Well, I'm pro originality.
That's true. I don't necessarily wish that they would stop, but I wish that they would do a better job of making them set apart from the originals. Like, take the story and give it its own spin. Don't do a Lion King and try and shot-for-shot remake the thing with only a few minor changes.
What on earth was that?
I hated the 2019 Lion King so much when I watched that, and a lot of other people weren't as harsh on it, but like I just despised it because it's like one of the reasons why I despised it was because it was like I loved the 1994 Lion King. The 1994 animated Lion King was my favorite movie Disney ever made, and so it holds a special place in my heart. So when I watched this version in 2019, I was like, this feels like blasphemy. What is happening here? Like,
yeah.
and the other live action remakes, I agree with Rachel and Jonathan, like, because if you're gonna make a live action remake, don't do it exactly the same. Do something new with it. Like they did that with Mulan, and they did that with Cinderella. Those are the best ones.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I didn't like Mulan, but I think Pete's Dragon is the best one of all of them, and it's like nothing like the original.
Yeah, it's another one they took the story and put their own unique spin on it.
Mm-hmm. And I also think that that's helped by the fact that I don't really like the original Pete's Dragon, so I think that helps somewhat too.
I don't really like the original Pete's Dragon either. That one I thought was a little overrated. But the new one was really good, and it was completely different. So it felt like a completely different movie. So it's like probably the least like the original of all the other ones, but for the best because I ended up liking that one.
My all-time favorite of any of the, I love Pete's Dragon, but I loved Mary Poppins Returns much more than most people seem to have. I just thought it was really wonderful. And I loved the songs, and I loved the dancing, the choreography. I just thought it was magical. Yeah. So that's the one that I guess I really bonded with.
I don't even feel like it belongs in the same category because, well, for one, it's almost more of a sequel, but it's also like so much head and shoulders above all the others that it's just
that's what I feel. Almost
too good to be compared.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? It's a little different. Like Jonathan said, it's a little bit different. It's just sort of more like a sequel than a remake. But the idea behind Mary Poppins Returns was sort of the same as the live action remake because they're sort of like taking an old movie and then updating it for modern times.
Yeah.
Like and I also agree with Rachel that movie was super underrated, and I really enjoyed it. It was like one of my favorite movies of the year, and I thought they did a good job with it. And I was not expecting to like it at all because I love the original Mary Poppins, and I thought this was going to be like possibly like something that's trying to capture the magic of the original, but doesn't succeed at it. But it was actually, it blew my mind how like excellent it actually was. It was a really great movie, and I also liked the music too.
Agreed.
Yeah, I would have said that it helped to go in with low expectations because I went in with very low expectations and loved it. But I've rewatched it since, and I love it just as much as the first time. So I don't think it's just that I had low expectations. I think it actually is a genuinely good movie.
Agreed.
And I feel like it's the only one of those that I think that Walt would have genuinely loved. I really do. I think when I was watching, I felt like I was in Marceline watching a movie with Walt as I was watching Mary Poppins Returns.
You know what? Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, Walt Disney would not be the kind of person who would like it if they did live action remakes of his animated movies. I think he would be opposed to that. But, you know, Mary Poppins Returns was something that it seems like he would enjoy, though.
But as far as the Cinderella, I mean, getting Kate Blanchett to be Lady Tremaine was brilliant. And I feel like they made just enough changes to make it its own, have its own flair, have its own identity, but then also not just be like weird. I don't know. I feel like they got that blend just about as well as you could. Like they added a little bit to Lady Tremaine's character. You understood a little more of her motivations for why she was kind of jealous of Cinderella because her father, you know, her husband and Cinderella's father, you know, loved Cinderella more than he loved her. And that I think works well to give her a little bit of motivation without redeeming the character. Like that's part of the problem is when we want to have these tragic backstories to the characters, to the villains, sometimes we lose what made them a villain and made them a fun character to begin with. So then they're just really bland.
Yeah, I would say that, like, for me, I love a good villain redemption story, but at this point, Disney has done it so many times that it's almost refreshing to see them not do that.
No, I'm over it. I'm tired of it.
They still did, like you said, they gave her reasons for why she was who she was, like legitimate reasons, but they didn't use that to make us feel so sorry for her and then have her fully reform by the end. So even though I like when villains get reformed, I like that they didn't just go in that direction because it seems too easy these days because they have done it so many times.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, probably one of my favorite things about that movie is at the beginning of the movie, it's like for the first half hour, it's like a bunch of stuff that happens before the animated movie's plot takes place. It was like they did a good job, like building on the relationship between Cinderella and her father, and Cinderella's father's relationship with Cinderella's stepmother. And I enjoyed seeing all that because it was like, oh, this is a little bit of world building. I'm seeing a little bit of what happened before the original movie takes place, and like that was like for like 30 minutes before it started. And also they did add the part where he met the prince in the forest, which is something they added to it that made it seem a little less like the prince and Cinderella just fell in love with each other at the ballroom just instantly. They actually knew each other, which I thought was a good element they added.
Yeah, they have some time together, which I appreciated.
Yeah, because that was my favorite part of the remake, was that they added a little bit more to the relationship of the prince and Cinderella because they seemed sort of flat in the animated one.
Mm-hmm. I also liked that they actually made her mother a character, and it gave the story a little bit more weight to have the mother at the beginning, and like you see them as a family, and then when she dies, because like at the beginning of the original Cinderella, she's basically just, you never meet her, and so there's not really that weight of loss that you get with this one.
Yeah. And I at first, when I saw the publicity, I thought, oh, this dress, I don't know about this dress, because it was so big. But then when they make it a part of her mother's, that it was her mother's dress, that I think helps make it a better part of the story. And so then when the fairy godmother sort of, transforms her, it's her mother's dress instead of the silver dress from the movie.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
A lot of the things they added to the movie that weren't in the animated one were actually not bad. They were good additions to the story.
Yeah. And I mean, when you hire Kate Blanchett, you're going to get a good performance.
I don't know why, but it took me until like halfway through the movie to suddenly realize, wait a minute, that's Galadriel.
Yes.
It's a very different character.
Yes.
Kate Blanchett is great in this. She's a great actor, and she can play evil well.
Yeah, she really can. Although she has her evil moments as Galadriel.
That's true. Yes, that one specific scene.
So yeah, I think it's a good movie, a good remake. I kind of look at it less as a remake and more just another version of Cinderella.
Yes.
We get them every couple of years, we get a new version of Cinderella.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Kind of, because it doesn't really have a lot. It doesn't really have a lot in common with the animated one. So it kind of isn't a remake in a way. It's just sort of like more like a retelling of the original story.
I think they kept enough of the animated version that you can still call it a remake, because the mice, I don't think that that's a specific thing to Cinderella. I think that's more the 1950s Cinderella. And even the names, like Jacques became Jacqueline, but Gus was still there.
but that is kind of weird in live action to have her talking to mice and stuff like that.
Well, in this one, the mice they didn't talk back, so it's slightly less weird. And then you also have, I don't think that Drizella and Anastasia, I don't think that those are always their names. I think that was specific to the Disney version, so they've kept that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there are like allusions in the music to the 1950s one, and over the credits, of course, you get the actual singing of the songs from the 1951.
Right.
It's definitely not a remake in the like the Lion King or some of these other ones we talked about.
Not,
Well, yeah, maybe I'm thinking of the Lion King because that was such a like blatant remake. But
yeah, there will be a lot to talk about with the Lion King whenever I eventually get to that one, because I have more things that I could say, but I think I will save them for that podcast in the future.
Yeah. Good.
On the topic of the cast, though, one thing that I wouldn't have known him back then, but the Prince, I realized that he's the same guy who played Icarus in The Eternals, and that stuck out to me because I don't think I knew him before that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's on Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Which I've never seen.
Yeah. I watch Game of Thrones, but he's on Game of Thrones, and I feel like I've seen him in other stuff, but yeah, he's good.
He has a decently long IMDb page, but I didn't recognize him the first time I saw it, and it only took me till now because I had recently saw The Eternals to recognize him.
Yeah.
And then Cinderella is played by Lily James, who I'm not that familiar with either. Do you guys know her from anything else?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love her in Downton Abbey. She's great on that show. And then also she is on the Mamma Mia sequel, which is great. I love it.
And I haven't seen either of those.
And she's also in another romantic movie called, it's based on a book. It's called The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. It's a mouthful, but it's actually a really good movie. I highly recommend it. It's on Netflix.
Okay. I remember the title and being curious about it, but I've never seen that one either.
Yeah, and she's also actually just recently been in this, I haven't seen it, but a miniseries where she played Pamela Anderson, which seems like the transformation, the makeup and hair and everything, it's pretty crazy, pretty
It would have to be,
amazing.
She doesn't look anything like Pamela Anderson.
I know, but they make her look like I haven't seen it, but I've seen the ads. It looked pretty.
I heard about Pam and that Pamela Anderson show, and I didn't know that was Lily James playing her though. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Like she looks nothing like her.
She's also in the Edgar Wright movie Baby Driver. I know if you've seen that, but she's in that. She's in a lot of stuff.
The person that I think I'm probably most familiar with from this cast is Helena Bonham Carter as the fairy godmother.
Yeah.
I've seen her in stuff since I was a kid. I love her.
Yeah, she's great.
Oh yeah, I've definitely seen her because I've seen every film Tim Burton ever directed, so I definitely saw her.
She's in pretty much every film he's ever made. Yeah.
And they were married for a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
And it took me until looking at the IMDb page to realize that her mother is played by Haley Atwell, who everybody will know from the Marvel movies as Peggy Carter, and then in the What If series, Captain Carter.
Yeah. I saw her in that movie, and I didn't recognize her at first because she was blonde, and I was like I would have almost never noticed of the blonde Haley Atwell if I wasn't watching this movie on Amazon Prime and they have like fun facts on the side of the screen.
Oh, I like that, yeah.
Yeah. And they said that was Haley Atwell, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't notice.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have Derek Jacobi as the king, which it took me a minute to recognize him. I'm familiar with him from Doctor Who. He had a very big role in a specific episode of Doctor Who that I won't get into because Rachel has yet to see that one. But yeah, that's where I mainly know him from. So every time I see him, I think back to that episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah, most of this cast in this movie I did not recognize because I did not watch Doctor Who. I don't watch Downton Abbey. So, yeah. Lily James, I think this was my introduction to her. Although I did see Baby Driver, but that movie was a blur to me.
Yeah, other than that, I didn't really recognize anybody.
Except for Cate Blanchett. I knew.
Well, of course, yes.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty fun movie. I enjoy it, so...
Yeah, I like it. It's good.
One thing that I had questions on when I was watching was what time period is this supposed to take place in?
That's a good question.
I think it's supposed to be like 1840s. Is my guess, like 1830s, 1840s.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure. My guess was going to be 1700s, but I'm not an expert, so...
I wouldn't be surprised if it was it's 1800s, 1840s or something like that, because like Rachel said, because it's it looks like it takes place in a time right before the Industrial Revolution or right before telephones and cars get invented. It's
pre-Victorian.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah. And another thing that I was using as sort of a clue as to 1700s is the song "Lavender's Blue Dilly Dilly" is a recurring motif through the whole film.
Yeah.
And at first I was just thinking of it as, because I recently watched So Dear to My Heart, another early Disney film, and I was thinking of it as a song from that movie, and I was just thinking, oh, there's just a callback to another Disney film. But then I looked it up, apparently it's a really old song. And it was from the 1700s. So I was wondering if maybe that was a clue as to when it took place, but I wasn't sure.
I would think post Regency, but which is the Jane Austen era. Mm-hmm. But I don't know for sure.
I wouldn't be surprised. It looks like a Jane Austen movie.
Yeah. I'm not an expert, but the dresses sort of made me think 1800s. But then I was thinking, well, that's too late in time. Maybe it's earlier. I don't know. But like I said, I'm not an expert on that kind of thing.
Me neither. I'm just estimating.
What did you guys think of Anastasia and Drizella in this?
Well, it was fun because they had one of the actresses is also from Downton Abbey.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was kind of fun to see her. She plays in Downton Abbey. She plays one of the maids. So it was fun to see her as this. And the costumes for these two were just so good.
I loved them. I thought they were hilarious, and the costumes made me think of. Have you guys ever seen the Disney Channel show Wizards of Waverly Place?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
There's a character in there named Harper, and she always dresses in wild colors and costumes, and it was these two were Victorian era Harpers from Wizard of Waverly Place. That was my thought of with them. Except Harper's nice, and these two were hilariously bratty. Yeah. I loved the scene when they're having a brawl, and the mother's in the other room saying, "Such dear affectionate girls," and one of them yells, out, "Sometimes I could scratch your eyes out."
Yes. I liked the stepsisters. They were some of the highlights of the movie were the scenes with the stepsisters, in my opinion.
And another scene with them, they overhear Cinderella talking to the mice. And one says, "We've got a half-wit for a sister." Well, I've got two.
Yeah, and then she said, "I've got two," and that was funny. Yeah.
Another thing that I thought set this one apart was the storyline with the father, because I don't remember in all the Cinderellas that I've seen, I don't remember the father being, and by father I mean the king dying, because usually it's the whole thing was with the king wants his son to get married and he's like behind the whole thing. But like in this one, the king is kind of dead set on him marrying royalty, and that's kind of a sticking point between the two of them, is he wants him to marry royalty, and the duke goes so far as to like set it up for him to actually marry a princess. And even I don't think the king even knew about that. But then the king ends up dying before the end of the movie, making the prince the king before the end of the movie. So by the end of this movie, Cinderella is not just a princess, she's actually queen of this whole land.
Yeah.
And I don't remember that in other versions of Cinderella.
I actually liked how right before the king died in that movie, he was like, he let the prince like follow his heart and marry the woman who he actually loved, instead of getting set up with a woman who he didn't love. Because like the whole time I was watching the movie, I was hoping that the king would like give him his blessing, like hopefully before he died or something. And he finally did, and it was very satisfying. Except for the part when he died, that part was sad, but at least before he died, like he said, I agree. The rule should change. You should fall in love with the girl who you want to fall in love with, instead of someone I want you to marry.
Yeah, I liked the king in this one, even though he was too stuck on the princess thing at the beginning. I liked him as a character, and I liked the fact that they made up before he died.
Yeah, totally.
Going back to Helena Bonham Carter, what did you guys think of her fairy godmother character and that whole scene?
Yeah, she was a good fairy godmother. Like, I have to stop comparing her to the original because I like the original so much. But like, if I'm just focusing on her own merits, then she was good. She was a nice counterpoint to the rest of the cast. She was like the more whimsical of everyone else. She was like, I like the magical like component of the movie, because like the whole movie there wasn't a lot of magic in this. It was mostly a little bit more grounded and less fantastic. But this finally just went all out with the computer animation in this scene where the pumpkin is growing and the mice turn into horses. It was like, this was just a pure Disney magic. And I did like Helena Bonham Carter's performance too. She was like, she was not overly, I liked my favorite thing about her was that she was not overly like cutesy or sentimental with the role. She was very practical. She accidentally called herself the hairy dog father when she which I thought was a good touch that made her seem a little slightly out of it, a little screwy, which I thought was a nice touch. And so I liked that, and I loved that whole scene too.
Yeah, I loved the whole transformation scene, and the like transferring back too, because I'm thinking of her like inside the pumpkin, and you can see like all the seeds and everything. That like everything they did with the transformation of before and after, I thought was really creative.
Yeah.
I also liked that they used lizards. Lizards were cute.
Yeah, that was a different thing they did from the animated movie. They did the lizards, which was a nice touch, and a goose instead of was the driver instead of the horse in the animated one. And you're right, I liked the transformation of the carriage, of the pumpkin into a carriage, and the scene when the carriage transformed back into a pumpkin I thought was some of the best CGI in the movie. They did a really good job with that. It was like, it looked like there was a lot of computer animation involved in that, and sometimes that can look fake if it's too much computer animation. But I don't really harp on stuff like that. I still think it was like impressive and well staged, because it's not easy to make a scene of a carriage turning into a pumpkin while it's driving and have it look believable, but they did a good job with it.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I noticed between the first one and this one was I wondered what was going to happen to Cinderella when the pumpkin changed back. But like the scene cut away from the pumpkin changing, and then when it goes back to the road, Cinderella's just sitting on top of the pumpkin. So you didn't get like the actual practical thing of like she's inside that thing, and you got that with this. So I really liked that she ended up like inside the pumpkin as it was like getting all gooey and all the seeds were coming back.
Yeah, that was my favorite thing. They showed all the details of a person in a carriage turning into a person in a pumpkin, like and gradually turns back into one. It was like a lot more details than how they did in the animated version. I thought was nice.
I did wonder though what happened to the lizards after that scene, because at first I thought you'd never see them again, but then at the very end I could see them on the balcony as they were like waving to the people or whatever. So they didn't fully disappear, but they did disappear after that.
Well, yeah, but the lizards were not in this movie a lot. They would just sort of appear at the same time the fairy godmother appeared, because I didn't remember seeing the lizards anywhere until the fairy godmother appeared, and then
they were just kind of crawling around outside.
They were crawling around,
in the scene before that scene.
Yeah, I thought, and so I was thinking, once the lizards transform back into lizards, they're probably just going to not be seen again after that, and they're just going to crawl into the woods or something. But but I didn't notice. But you just said that's at the end of the movie. But that's nice that they got an extra chance to appear before it ended, because they did play an important role in the story.
Yeah, plus they were like the only ones that actually talked to her while she was, like, everything was transformed. Like, she had like a conversation with at least the one lizard, so it kind of made them full-fledged characters. So that's why I thought it was weird that they would just kind of disappear after that, after her having that little heartfelt conversation with them. Yeah,
I forgot about that. Yeah, they did have a heartfelt conversation, and then it was like. And then, it would make sense that the lizards would have to show up at the end. They didn't do that. Otherwise, it felt like they would have just been in there just for the heartfelt moment and out. That's not good storytelling. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I noticed with that scene was, did the scene with the fairy godmother appearing seem familiar to you guys? Because to me, it seemed like the scene. Well, I haven't seen the remake, so I'm talking about the original Beauty and the Beast, with the witch or whatever, the enchantress, I guess, appearing as an old lady looking for help at the beginning. It reminded me of that scene.
You know what? I didn't think of that until now, but now that you bring it up, it is kind of similar. It reminds me a little bit of the enchantress. Also an old woman in a cloak who you don't think there's anything magical about until all of a sudden she surprises you and transforms. Maybe they were inspired by it, who knows, or the coincidence. But yeah, it is sort of similar.
Yeah, I can see that. I haven't really thought about it.
Yeah. Well, it would be years after. Well, that movie was years before the live-action Beauty and the Beast remake came out. And then they could really.
The way they handle the Enchantress in the remake is terrible. She would seriously be the worst person in the world. The way that they handled it in that one. What she does to the whole castle of people, punishing them, it's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen the remake, so I have no comment yet.
I don't know how you got away with not seeing that remake. That one's, it's so bad. I hate it so much.
It was weird because when it was first announced, I was looking forward to it. Then reviews started coming out. And I was like, well, I don't know that I'll make it a priority. And then things just kept sounding worse and worse. And eventually I was like, well, I'll do it when I get there in my Disney reviews. And then it became a podcast. So now I'm just waiting until I get to Beauty and the Beast in my podcast.
That's the same thing that happened to me with Maleficent. I still haven't watched Maleficent, even though it came out in 2014. Just because I didn't see a lot of enthusiasm about it. So I'll eventually watch it, but I'm just not in a hurry.
I feel like I'm in the minority that I actually liked those movies. They weren't amazing or anything, but I enjoyed them. And I think the second one was better than the first one.
Oh, okay, well, that gives me a little hope. Maybe
I agree. The second one is better than the first, but yeah, not my favorite.
Okay.
One thing that I liked towards the end of the movie was you get the scene with the stepmother overhearing about the Duke having promised the prince to a different princess. And then after the whole thing with the slipper has gone down and she's broken the other slipper, she goes back to the Duke and she tells him that her servant was actually this mystery princess, and that he basically is talking about her saving the kingdom from a great deal of embarrassment. And she says, and I should like to keep it that way. And he says, are you threatening me? Yes. The look on her face. Because she wants to be made a countess and get advantageous marriages for her daughters. But I just love that. Are you threatening me? Yes.
Yeah. I love how she just said yes.
She's honest, at least.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I am.
And then we were talking about it in the other episode, but Cinderella upstairs, she doesn't even know that the prince is there. I liked that scene. Like, she's just basically trying to keep her spirits up, and even though she's locked in, it's not as desperate as the original movie because she doesn't realize that the prince is there. But I loved how they had her singing, and the singing is what alerts everybody because the mice and birds get the door open to have everybody outside hear her. And then the reveal that the prince has been there the whole time. I really liked that. That
was good, yeah. Yeah, I liked how they didn't copy the story from the original movie. They were creative with it. They added some new things. That was one of my favorite things about it, and it's probably what surprised me most about it. But it was a pleasant surprise. Yeah,
again, putting their own spin on it. It's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And then, as far as I can remember, I don't think you get a whole lot of closure at the end of the 1951 as far as what happens with the stepmother and stepsisters. You just know that they've been foiled. But at this one, you have the narrator, the fairy godmother, saying that the stepmother and her daughters were banished with the Grand Duke, like they were never seen in the kingdom again.
Yeah, which, satisfying nonetheless.
Yeah. They get some sort of comeuppance.
Yeah.
And then you get the last scene with them. They've added portraits of her parents, and then with the little animals around the balcony as they're presenting themselves to the kingdom. I liked that you got to see the lizards again. I don't know. I really liked the lizards. I'm just glad that they weren't gone forever.
Yeah. It looked a little weird when they were humans, but
that's true.
Yeah. You remember that scene where one of them ate a fly while he was
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and they had pointy teeth as well. They weren't the best looking humans, but I still liked them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a pretty good job with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cinderella 2, Dreams Come True. People had told me that this was not a good movie. It was not a good movie.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like this is what people think that Barbie movies are. And I've seen Barbie movies.
You.
They're like heads and shoulders above whatever this was.
Yeah, not even close. This is terrible.
The music was so forced. The animation was by Walt Disney Television Animation, so it was basically television grade. It was not a good successor to the original Cinderella. You could tell that they were trying, but they didn't try hard enough. It was very cheap.
Especially the whole Jacques becomes human. That is just painful.
This basically felt like 3 episodes of a Cinderella TV show that wasn't very good.
Yeah. That's what it felt.
I hate it.
It was not a real movie. It was just 3 segments in one, which I always hate when they do that because it feels like a cheat. But
yeah,
that happens several times in Disney movies. But yeah, I wouldn't have minded that as much if I were entertained a little bit more by those three segments. One was about Cinderella, like learning to live in the castle. The other was about Jack turning into a human, and the other was about Gisela. I can't remember which one's which, Anastasia or Gisela.
Anastasia.
But like Anastasia falling in love with the local baker in the village, and like those were all of those three things could have been interesting premises, but they didn't do a lot with them. They were just bland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they didn't give enough time to any of the stories. And even if they had, the only one that I would have been slightly interested in is the last one. The other two stories were just so boring. They were almost the same story with the change that Jacques became human. Like, basically, Cinderella is now in charge of all the parties. Like, she's got to put on a party in all these episodes. And that's like all that she's good for now, I guess.
Yeah, that's her big thing, evidently.
And I also have questions about the narrative thread that ties these together. Like, does the fairy godmother now live in the castle? Because the whole premise of this movie is that she and the mice are telling each other stories about Cinderella. So did she just like move in?
I don't know. I don't think she needs to move in because you can teleport. So like she shouldn't move in. Like, but maybe she did. Who knows? Although I'm sure that they're still friends. Like, since the fairy godmother like is the whole reason why Cinderella is even living in the castle in the first place. So so she owes her. So why not give her a room?
You owe me. Give me a room.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's not completely outlandish for her to request that.
And the whole thing with Lucifer and his girlfriend, like,
yeah.
Where did that other cat come from? My question is, why did they get another cat when Cinderella has mice friends? Like, why would they get a cat for the castle? And that cat was hideous. True. Like, I prefer Lucifer. She was just, I don't know. It looked like she was trying to be snooty, but it was just a bad character design, if you ask me. I didn't like her at all.
No. Terrible.
Yeah. No, a lot of things about this movie were unmemorable, including like that, like love interest for Lucifer, and like giving Lucifer a girlfriend cat and turning Jack into a human. These are all really like uncreative premises. This is like the kind of things that like I don't know, a kindergartner could come up with these plots. Like it's not.
Yeah. The whole thing felt like bad fan fiction by like a 10-year-old.
Yeah, and it would have made more sense for Gus to be insecure and get turned into a human, because Jacques was the one that was confident and to bossing everyone around. Like, he didn't need to get turned into a human. It was terrible.
Yeah,
I hate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
One extremely petty nitpick that I have is in the second story, the party ends up being a carnival at the end, and there's a Ferris wheel. And again, like, what year is this? Because Ferris wheels weren't invented until like the late 1800s.
I never thought of that. Is that historically accurate?
No, definitely not. And also the whole thing about the elephant and mice. That was so ridiculous. Elephants are afraid of mice, so apparently Jacques can control what the elephant does, and that's why he wants to become a mouse again. It was so dumb.
Oh, God.
Yeah, this is one of the worst. It's not the worst. I think the worst of the cheap quills is the Hunchback of Notre Dame 2 is an abomination.
I still haven't seen that one either.
My least favorite of the cheap quills, like Cinderella 2 is down there. I also didn't like the Little Mermaid 2. I thought the Little Mermaid 2 was really poorly done, and I also didn't like the Lion King 2.
Oh, really? So I'd say the Lion King 2 is one of the more tolerable ones. But also the Fox and the Hound 2 is so bad. It's a midquel. So it's supposed to take place in the middle of the movie while, because there's that break in Fox and the Hound. And they go to like a carnival and meet up with Reba McEntire dog. It was really bad.
Exactly. I haven't seen the Fox and the Hound 2 yet, but I heard people talking about it. The premise sounds really weird, and it sounds like it has nothing to do with the Fox and the Hound. It's like, why are we... Is some Reba McEntire dog, you said?
Yeah.
That's a completely different... Yeah, it's nothing. Yeah, completely different from the plot of the original movie. It was just like a drama about two friends who become enemies.
Yeah, Pocahontas 2, I'm not a fan of. I didn't like Milan 2. I don't like that one. We'll talk about Cinderella 3. That one is actually pretty decent. Actually, the Bambi 2 isn't that bad. It's better than you'd think. But most of them, most of these cheap ones are just so bad.
Cinderella 2 is definitely one of the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about the cast of this, because I was surprised at how many good voice actors were in this, and I didn't really like a lot of their performances, even though, like, they're good actors. I've heard them in much better things.
I mean, they can't save it. If it's a terrible story, what can they do?
Yeah. You have Jennifer Hale as Cinderella, Rob Paulson as Jacques, but he's also the Duke. It doesn't say that, but I'm 99.9% sure he's also the Duke.
Yeah, it says on the Wikipedia, he's actually a ton of the characters. He's Jacques, Grand Duke, the baker, Sir Hugh, and Bert, and the flower vendor. Yeah,
he's all over the place. And he's a good actor, so I can't fault them for using him to as much as they could. But
they had Russi Taylor doing a bunch of voices in this.
Yeah, and she's the fairy godmother.
Who I love.
And Tress MacNeille as Anastasia. And I love Tress MacNeille. But every time Anastasia talked, it was like, that's not Anastasia, that's Tress MacNeille.
That's the problem, yeah. Like, Tress MacNeille is totally easy for me to spot. So, like, every time she's in a role, I kind of, like, no offense to her, but I kind of like, oh, I got her again. It's like this. It takes me out of it sometimes. But like, she's not bad though.
Yeah.
You also have Suzanne Blakesley, who I wasn't as familiar with. She's the stepmother. I guess she's played Cruella in some of the 101 Dalmatians extra things. But I will say, I didn't think she was that great in Cinderella 2. She was a lot closer to what she should have sounded like in Cinderella 3. So she must have done some vocal exercises or something practicing. Yeah. She sounded so much closer to the stepmother in 3 than 2.
That's one of the many things about Cinderella 3 that's better than Cinderella 2.
Yeah. I think in Cinderella 3, even though the cast is the same, everybody did so much better in Cinderella 3 than they did in 2.
I don't know. Maybe you can tell me this because I don't remember, but did Cinderella 3 have a different director than the director from Cinderella 2?
I'm not sure. I didn't look up who the director was, but let me check here.
If it's a different director, it might just be something as simple as the fact that they had a better director, and so he did a better job directing the voice actors, and so maybe that's why she sounded different.
Yes, different director.
This feels like they actually tried in Cinderella 3. They actually had a story. They actually have some action. Yeah. They have So
and importantly, it wasn't 3 stories in one. It was just one story.
Yes, that also helps a lot.
Yeah.
I think the thing that surprised me the most with both of these is who played the prince. Did you guys know who played the prince?
No.
It's the same person who played Eric in The Little Mermaid.
Wait a minute. Oh, you talking about Kristen Barnes?
Christopher Daniel Barnes is his name.
Christopher Daniel Barnes. Oh, yeah. I think maybe I knew that, but I completely forgot. The Little Mermaid prince played the Cinderella prince.
Yeah, I thought it was also kind of ironic that when we get to Cinderella 3, you have him basically where he is at the end of The Little Mermaid, with him under a spell being forced to marry somebody who's not the person he thinks she is.
It's kind of funny, yeah. like same exact thing.
We talk about the third one, the Cinderella 3?
Well, first I want to talk about the last segment of Cinderella 2 because it's the one with the most substance, and even though it feels sort of like they retcon it with Cinderella 3, it sort of builds something that Cinderella 3 takes and runs with, which is having Anastasia be a sympathetic character. So in Cinderella 2, they basically give her a love interest and have Cinderella give her a makeover and like tell her how to be a better person. And it was a very weird, weird story. Like, it didn't make a whole lot of sense why Cinderella would be doing this, apart from the fact that Cinderella is just a naturally kind person. I guess that's where they got the idea from. But like I said, I am kind of a sucker for a villain redemption story, so I did kind of enjoy that they were trying to redeem her.
Yeah.
But they didn't do it in such a way that it was like super memorable and amazing. It was just, yeah, okay, that was something that happened. Yeah. But it did give them something to build off of when they moved on to Cinderella 3.
I do appreciate a little bit of creativity there, because it's like when they decided to make Cinderella 2, they didn't just think, oh, well, like they can't make Anastasia ally because he's the villain. She has to be the villain. They decided to just do something a little adventurous and make her kind of sympathetic towards Cinderella and have her sort of be like a semi-ally. And they sort of played with that a little bit, and I thought that was interesting. Like, although like some people make fun of like Aladdin sequels because they think it's weird how Iago is suddenly like an ally to Aladdin, and like even when he was such a nobody villain minion in the first movie, and it's something that they kind of do a lot, which is like, which might actually just be like lack of creativity. Who knows? Like, oh, we need more characters. Let's turn the villain into a good guy. That'll be what we do. And like, but if it's done well, then it's fine. I don't mind that. Although villain redemption stories for me can be tricky to pull off sometimes.
Yeah, and I don't think they did that great of a job in this one because it kind of sort of comes out of nowhere. Even though they do spend the most time with this story and they flesh her out more than they would have, or more than they did with any of the other extra characters in the other stories, it still feels very short and like they should have given it more time and made it make more sense that Cinderella's all of a sudden on her side, being basically a sister to her and giving her a makeover. And yeah. I mean, it was fine. It was the most fine part of the whole movie, but it didn't rescue the movie in any way for me.
Well, I do agree with you that was probably even though it wasn't that great, I do agree it was probably the best segment of the three.
Mm-hmm. Well, then moving on to Cinderella 3, for me at least, begs the question of like, what time period is this? Because when we get to Cinderella 3, it's their 1 year anniversary. So what time period was Cinderella 2 supposed to be taking place in? Because they're three completely different stories taking place in different times, but like Anastasia at the beginning of 3 is back to how she was in the first one. You can tell that she still has glimmers of the character we saw in number 2, but her hair is back to being the normal. She's back to being an extreme brat fighting with her sister. So I'm wondering if Cinderella 2, at least the last segment, was supposed to take place more than a year after they were married, because the Cinderella 3 is their 1 year anniversary, because otherwise they basically retconned it. I mean, technically it's either way it's retconned because the whole time travel thing, and they've completely changed history, but it was just a weird thing that I noticed.
Well, that was what I was about to say, that they retconned it, and that was probably just all there was to it at the end. They just retconned it, and that's why, like, but even if I did go into the details of what I thought they were trying to do, I would probably just imagine that they weren't expecting people to think about it. They were just, because this is like, they probably weren't taking it as seriously. Like, let's just say that Anastasia fell in love with that baker after Cinderella 3 takes place, and there wouldn't be anything wrong with that. It's like they probably will make up some reason behind the timing, but if they had to, but it's probably they weren't thinking about it.
Yeah, a lot of this is, I'm wondering how much thought that they gave to anything.
I think you probably put more thought into that question than they did into all of Cinderella too.
Probably. I tend to do that with a lot of things.
It's like, I mean, I'm the kind of person who thinks about stuff like that too. Actually, I think about like the logic of this. Where does this take place? This doesn't make sense in this timeline. I think about stuff like that a lot, but I usually suppress that because I think that I'm probably thinking about it more than the filmmakers are, and so at that point, it's like, okay, this is pointless.
Yeah,
that's I feel.
I guess I didn't ask this about Cinderella too, but with both of these, when did you guys first watch these? Because I didn't watch these until just now for this podcast.
I can't remember. I think it might have been my second canon watch that I was doing for my channel. I did a video on the Cinderella 2 and 3, and I think that's my first time I watched both of them. I might have seen 3 sooner because people said it was good, but I can't remember.
Yeah, for me, it was, okay, the gap between when I watched Cinderella 2 and when I watched Cinderella 3 was really wide because I first watched Cinderella 2 back when it aired on Disney Channel, because I used to watch Disney Channel a lot because I had cable when I was a teenager. And when it came on, I watched it because I always watched Disney Channel. And that was... when I first watched it, I didn't think it was as bad as I think it is now. I think because I was less, you know how you are when you're a kid, you're less sentimental about some things. And so I thought it was okay, but I rewatched it on Disney Plus recently, and that was when I got to the opinion that I have now, where I thought it was, now that I can think critically, now I'm thinking, this is really bad. But I also never watched Cinderella 3 until I watched it on Disney Plus because I never got around to it. So after I watched Cinderella 2, I watched Cinderella 3. And I heard people say that I actually heard Rachel talk about Cinderella 3 before I watched it a long time ago. And she told me that it felt like it was actually trying to be a good story. Unlike Cinderella 2, it felt like it was actually decent. And I heard other people say it was good too. And I finally watched it on Disney Plus, and I thought I agreed. It wasn't great. No sequel, no straight to video sequel is ever as good as the first movie. So it's not as good as the first movie, but it wasn't bad. It made a lot of interesting choices that I thought made for compelling narrative, and most importantly, it was a vast improvement over Cinderella 2, which I thought was the best thing.
Yeah, this, for anybody who maybe is listening and doesn't know, Cinderella 3 is basically an alternate universe story where the evil stepmother gets a hold of the fairy godmother's wand and changes history, trying to get Anastasia in Cinderella's place to marry the prince so that they can move into the castle and have their own happily ever after, I guess. So it's a really interesting premise for a movie, and I didn't watch it until for this podcast, but it was one of the sequels, because when I started the podcast, I was like, I'm not going to watch any of the ones that I haven't seen until I get to them for the podcast. But this is the one that I was probably the most curious about, because I'd heard that it was actually decent, and I heard what the plot was, and I was like, I'm really interested to see what this is and how they play with it. And I was kind of pleasantly surprised. It wasn't amazing by any stretch, but it was decent and worth watching. I don't think it was worth making as far as as an actual successor to the original Cinderella. I don't think this needed to have been made at all. But as long as they're going to make something, I think that they did the best that they could and put their own weird spin on it that I actually kind of enjoyed, because it was such a weird premise for a Cinderella story.
Yeah, I think it like I said, at least they tried. They had a story, and there's some fun action. The animation is not atrocious, which most of these cheapquels, the animation is really bad. But I really like the whole scene where the carriage race, kind of, I guess you'd call it, is really good. Well done.
Yeah. Well, the animation in this one is done by Disney Toon Studios, which is a step above Disney Television Animation. Because Disney Toon Studios is the one, they're like behind the Goofy movie, and the other higher quality, like the top tier Disney Animation Studio, they're like, they're the ones who get the less important ones, I guess, the ones that aren't going to be like the Disney canon movies. So it was already way better than Cinderella 2 from that perspective. You could tell from the very beginning that they had a much better animation budget because the animation was very good.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the things that I notice about when we're talking about Cinderella 2 and Cinderella 3 is that like Cinderella 2 and Cinderella 3 really like runs the full range of what most straight-to-video Disney sequels are like, because Cinderella 2 is one of the worst ones and Cinderella 3 is one of the best. So you can pretty much, you can pretty much measure all of them against those two movies, and it's pretty much in one of those or in between is what the quality is like. So if you really want to get an idea of what most of them are like, you can just watch those two movies.
Is this sequel a Cinderella 2 or a Cinderella 3?
Yeah,
where on that scale?
Yeah.
Yeah. If somebody asks you, if somebody asks you about the Hunchback of Notre Dame 2, and they say, is it a Cinderella 2 or is it a Cinderella 3? What's it like? That's a good question you can ask.
I will say, even though I enjoyed a lot of it, that there was a lot of stuff in here that, like I was talking about, it's probably me being too picky, thinking too hard about things. But I have questions about how the magic works and why it worked in the way that it did. Because, well, for starters...
Just the wand?
Yeah, the wand, apparently, at the beginning it's established that you need to say bibbidi-bobbidi-boo for the wand to work. But then later on in the movie, people are just using it willy-nilly to do whatever they want. And then you also have the thing with the fairy godmother. When she comes looking for the wand, Anastasia accidentally turns her into a statue. However, after the stepmother gets a hold of the wand, she turns back time. So why didn't the fairy godmother get unstatued when she turned back time? And why couldn't she come and take the wand from her? Then I also have the question, in the first movie, it's established that the fairy godmother, while she does have all these fabulous powers, there is a limit to what this magic can do, and it can only last so long. So why didn't the magic... I mean, I guess
that is a big question.
The movie doesn't stretch over weeks and weeks and weeks, so maybe the magic would have worn off given enough time, but...
It's not by midnight.
Yeah, why didn't anything really come to an end? There was a couple of things that did seem to end by themselves, because at one point Lucifer is turned into that carriage driver. He spontaneously changes back for no reason after he falls in the water. And then if you watch through the credits, at the end of the movie, Drizella and the stepmother are turned into toads. If you watch through the credits, they turn back. They're like in their dungeon or whatever, or they're supposed to be sweeping up. They turn back into humans and they're wearing rags and they're like screaming. So that wore off for them. So I'm just wondering how all of this magic was supposed to stick. And at least the part where they turned back time stuck, because the fairy godmother asked if they wanted to return to their former lives, and they were all confused, and she was like, oh, never mind. So they apparently stay with this new timeline that's been created. But I'm just wondering why that didn't come to an end either. So again, this is probably me just overthinking everything way too much. But I still have questions about how all this magic is supposed to work.
See,
I've definitely thought the same.
This is kind of why I hate time travel movies.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you do have to kind of accept a lot of nonsense when it comes to time travel, but but I don't know why they couldn't have done something that ends at midnight, because I mean, it was just Cinderella that day for some reason ends up at in midnight, but I would think if they're going to change the whole time space continuum, then I would address it.
And maybe it would have, because I mean the stepmother and Drizella, their spell wore off at the end, but so maybe everything would have, but I don't think the timeline ever reverted back. So who knows?
Yeah.
But at least they tried.
Yeah, and they tried harder than they needed to. Like, they could have made another Cinderella 2 and just put it out there because kids would buy it either way. But I enjoy the fact that they actually did try and make a decent movie.
Yeah, I don't even care if the time travel logic makes sense or doesn't make sense, because all I care about is if I'm emotionally invested in this story and if it's well written, because like then I can put the science aside, or the quote unquote science, and just to focus on like the characters and the plot, and this does a decent job with that. So like I was like satisfied either way.
Yeah, and I think that's the same for me. And I think I was most invested in Anastasia because, like, I mean, you know where this is going. There's no way they're going to have Cinderella end up being banished out to sea or wherever she was being sent.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie. You know that's not going to stick. But I was curious about what they were going to do with Anastasia because, like I said, with Cinderella 2, her segment, even though it wasn't that great, it was still, for me, the best one. And I liked seeing her have that shift. And you could see throughout this movie, she looked conflicted every time the stepmother wanted to do a new thing with her. And by the end, when she basically turned her into Cinderella, I really liked that before Cinderella even had a chance to interrupt the wedding, she turned down the prince and said she didn't want to get married anymore. I liked that they had that arc, and they had the arc feel believable rather than, oh, she's good now. Like, they actually gave her a good, satisfying character arc.
Yeah. Just like Rachel said, they actually tried. Like, it was a decent plot.
Mm-hmm. And I also like that they still had moments of hilarity with the stepsisters. Like, one thing that I just laughed out loud was when Cinderella is like hiding in the castle trying to figure out what's going on and trying to talk to the prince. You hear in the background the step family walking through the castle, and you hear the stepmother saying, "Remember, girls, grace and poise, grace and poise." And one of them yells, "Oh, look, a harp!" Like there's a strum of the harp and a crunch noise.
Yeah, there was some decent laughs in this, actually. Surprisingly,
Yeah, there were a few moments like that in this. So the writing was definitely a step ahead of what they had before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And that is a high compliment when you're talking about the straight-to-video movies.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of times people didn't even pay for these movies. They just came included. And Disney would try to make it sound like it was like a combo deal. Like, oh, you're getting 3 movies for the price of 1. Yeah, no, not so much.
Yeah, they're like, I have a few of those, like Atlantis, I think, has Atlantis and then whatever the sequel is to Atlantis. And I bought it for Atlantis. I have never watched the sequel, even though I own it because I got that.
Yeah, and that's
set.
one of those ones that was the 3 it's like 3 or 4 episodes of the TV show they were going to do.
Yeah,
those
did
ones
that
are
same
bad
thing.
too.
Yeah, they did that combo movie thing. They did that with Fantasia and Fantasia 2000, and at least Fantasia, and they also did that with The Rescuers and The Rescuers Down Under too. But at least,
well, those are different too, though, because those are actually good.
I think they're good. I don't know how Rachel feels about Fantasia 2000 and Rescuers Down Under, but I thought those movies were actually good, at least, and they helped. They were actually theatrically released.
I actually prefer Down Under to the original. I'm not a big fan of the original Rescuers.
Right?
So.
Yeah, I remember.
And they were actually made by the studio as well. And that's one thing that sets them above the others, because you don't have like Disney Television Animation or Disney Toon Studios or some lesser studio working on these. The actual Disney animation studio made those.
Yeah, it's not great when you package in the Disney television animation movie with the main canon, because then it's just like, oh, yeah, now I have to compare them, and now it's going to look even worse now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we covered it. Cinderella 3.
Yeah, that's probably about the end of it. I wanted to point out though too, at the very end when the credits are rolling, even though they seem to have retconned Cinderella 2, you have a picture of Anastasia with the baker at the end of Cinderella 3.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, is there? I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, during the credits, if you watch through the credits, there's a picture of her with the baker.
I like how they did a callback to that.
Yeah. So maybe even though history has been changed, she'll still eventually meet him and fall in love with him. They're destined for each other.
Right. Hopefully they made a good couple. Fingers crossed.
But yeah, that's the sequels to Cinderella.
Yeah.
Always fun
Yeah.
to talk. Sometimes you get more out of talking about bad movies than talking about good movies.
Yes. No, I've found that to be true.
Sometimes it's terrible.
Yeah. Making the podcast is always much more fun.
Yeah. Sometimes it's therapeutic to talk about the bad movies after you watch them.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, did you hate that as much as I did?
Pretty much, yeah. It's always, at least for me, it makes it worth it. Worth having sat through this terrible movie to make a fun podcast with somebody.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's always fun to talk Cinderella.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. These were fun episodes.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me. I always love talking to Rachel and Jonathan.
Yeah, you too. It's always fun to do these. You guys want to let people know where they can find you if they want more from you in the future? Rachel?
Yeah, you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out.
And Eli?
Yeah, you can find me mostly on Twitter. I'm at eJunkie2014, and I also have a blog called Entertainment Junkie Blog, and the website is ejunkie.blog.com, where I go more in depth about the history of entertainment.
Okay. We will probably see you again in the future. We don't have any immediate plans, but I'm sure you'll be back for more in the future. So until then.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. All of our links will be in the description below. If you'd like more podcasts like this one, all of our shows are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you'd like to support this show, check out Joncast Media on Patreon for everything here, plus bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.